أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Tawassul Program, Tuesday night program. Inshallah we'll start with the dua. But before I begin, there's a request for Surah Fatiha for Marhuma Shanaz Begum Binte Zahiruddin, who passed away today and was laid to rest in Princeton Memorial Park. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Let's remember all of those people who are in need of dua while we are reciting this dua tawassul. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي، أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد، أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر، أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي يا ابن موسى، أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي، أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي يا ابن محمد، أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي، أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وسي الحسن والخلف الحجة، أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي، يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. Ask for your hajat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please remember in your du'as and dua shifa, as well as your du'as, please remember brother Sayyid Hassan Raza, as well as our dear Sayyid Nasir Rizvi, as well as all of the people who are in need of du'as. May Allah give them all shifaya ajila wa kamila. يا سادتي وموالي، إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله، وتوسلت بكم إلى الله، واستشفعت بكم إلى الله، فاشفعوا لي عند الله، واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله، فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله، وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله، فكونوا عند الله رجائي، يا سادتي يا أولياء الله، صلى الله عليهم أجمعين، ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين، آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد، وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال علي بن الحسين عليهم الصلاة والسلام: والذنوب التي تهتك العصم شرب الخمر واللعب بالكمار، وطاعات ما يضحك الناس من اللغو والمزاح، وذكر عيوب الناس، ومجالسة أهل الريب. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. For today's, and rather tonight's discussion, in this brief time that I have, about 15 minutes, I chose this segment from the explanation of these segments from Dua Kumail, which we are so accustomed to reading, where Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, counts those sins which result in something else. So you probably remember when you recite Dua Kumail on Thursday nights or other nights, where the part where Imam gets to and he says, Allahumma khfir li ad-dunub allati masalan tahtiku al-'isam. Allahumma khfir li ad-dunub allati masalan tahbisu ad-du'a. That Allah forgive those sins which disgrace myself, or I disgrace myself with them. Or Allah forgive those sins tahbisu ad-du'a, which become the result in becoming the obstacle in the acceptance of dua. وَتُنزِلُ النِّقَمِ. Allah forgive the sins which result in the nuzul and the descending of your niqam or your azab and your wrath. And these different segments that Imam uses in Dua Kumail. Of course, Imam, when he's teaching this dua, he does not go in the explanation. He just says, Allah forgive the sins which do this. Allah forgive the sins which do this. A fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin ﷺ, then in another tradition goes in and explains and elaborates on this dua of Amirul Mu'mineen. For the segment where Imam talks about when he says, وَالدُّنُوبُ الَّتِي تَحْتِكُ الْعِصَمِ, the sins which lead to hatke ismat, disgracing yourself. The sins that we commit, which are disgrace for us. All the sins are disgrace. But then Imam counts specific sins which are hatke ismat. Hatke ismat, the word hatk is used in Urdu as well. And the word ismat, is not referring toward the infallibility, of course. But of course, the concept that a person, all of us have some sort of integrity and honor. The sins which result in shattering our honor and our integrity, through which our integrity is gone, our credibility is removed. Things which bring disgrace upon us. So there's a specific set of sins that Imam is referring to. Fourth Imam elaborates by saying, what are those sins? He counts. He counts four things. He said, وَالذُّنُوبُ الَّتِي تَحْتِكُ الْعِصَمِ, the sins which lead to hatke ismat are following. شُرْبُ الْخَمْرِ وَاللَّعِبُ بِالْقِمَارِ وَطَاعَاتِ مَا يُدْحِكُ النَّاسِ مِنَ اللَّغْوِ وَالْمِزَاحِ وَذِكْرُ عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ وَمُجَالِسَةُ أَهْلِ الرَّيْبِ. He says, these are these five things. Number one, shurubul khamr, consumption of alcohol. Number two, al-la'ibu bil qimar, gambling. Number three, ta'ati ma yudhiku nas min al-laghwi wal mizah, to deal with futility which makes people laugh and in vain and in jokes. Number four, dhikru uyubin nas, mentioning people's defects and shortcomings. And lastly, mujalasatu ahli raib, being in the company of those who are the people of, the translation could be dubious. Raib refers to that which is, doubtful. So being in the company of those who are doubtful as far as their characters go. So dubious would be a better translation for that. So we see that Imam ﷺ counts these five sins to be the result of one being disgraced in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and as well as in front of others. Number one, Imam says, shurbul khamr, consuming alcohol. Now, before I get into that, a little brief explanation from the fiqh perspective. In our fiqh, the law says all alcoholic liquors and beverages which intoxicate a person are najis, and on the basis of recommended precaution, everything which is originally liquid and intoxicates a person is najis. Hence, narcotics like opium and hemp, which are not liquid originally, would be considered tahir or pak, even when a liquid is added to them. But that does not decrease on their hurmat. They still remain haram. On the other hand, all kinds of industrial alcohol used for example, paintings when you're painting doors or windows or tables or chairs, these industrial alcohol that is used, that is all pak, it's tahir. If grapes or grape juice ferments by itself or on being cooked, they're also pak, but it is haram, of course, to consume it. If dates, currants, raisins, and other things of the same, same kind, their juice ferment, they are pak, they are tahir, and it is halal to eat them. So we find that there's a description which is being mentioned over here, and there's a distinction. Beer, which is called abijo or fuqa in Arabic, which is prepared from barley, it's called abijo, is haram, of course. And the ishkal on it being najis as well. But barley water, which is medically prepared and is called ma'u sha'ir, that I'm sure in the Arab countries you might even have seen it, it is tahir. But nonetheless, that's the fiqhi perspective of it. Imam is not talking about the concept of once a person consumed that which is haram. According to the hadith from our 8th and 9th Imams, consuming alcohol is amongst the major sins. And of course, there's an ayah which dictates that as well. Medical science also says that intoxicating liquids, little or lot, leads to various illnesses for brain, stomach, liver, heart, breathing, and as well as blood pressure. Quran considers all intoxicating liquid to be najis and amongst the acts of shaitan. Surah Ma'idah, ayat number 90 says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, innamal khamru wal maysiru wal ansabu wal azlamu rijsum min amal shaitan fajtanibuhu la'allakum tuflihun. That all you who have faith, indeed wine, gambling, idols, and the divining arrows are abominations of shaitan's doing, so avoid them. Fajtanibu, fi'li amr over here, denotes the fact that it is forbidden, so that you may be felicitous. We find that in other places in Quran as well, the concept of khamr, which is the alcohol, has been mentioned. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. This is in Surah Baqarah 219. They ask you concerning wine and gambling. Say, there's a great sin in both of them and some profit for the people, but their sinfulness outweighs their profit. Now, there's a history of why it was revealed in this way, because there was a time when Islam came and a lot of these people who became Muslims, they had the habit of drinking alcohol. And to remove this, habit of theirs, gradually the ahkam came to make it forbidden. It did not come to make it forbidden all at the same time. So therefore, talking about that there might be some benefit for people who use it or consume it or do whatever it is with it, that's what you get from this ayat. Or a place where it says, La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara, don't approach the prayer while you are intoxicated, also tells you that means, as long as I'm not approaching the prayer, I can be intoxicated. So the concepts were gradually being introduced. And then once people had the ability to remove themselves from this bad habit, the ayat came down saying, Fashtanibuhu min amali shaitan fashtanibuhu. It is an act of shaitan, refrain from it, and made it to be forbidden once and for all. Prophet condemned, sent la'ana on 10 people involved in intoxicating liquid. Jabir narrates from 5th Imam. He said, La'ana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fil khamri ashratan. Rasulullah cursed 10 people when related to alcohol. غارسها وحارسها وبائعها ومشتريها وشاربها والآكل ثمنها وعاصرها وحاملها والمحمولة إليه وساقيها. One who plants the tree, one who protects it, one who squeezes the fruits, one who drinks it, one who serves it, the one who transports it, the one who receives it from the transporter, the one who sells it, the one who buys it, and the one who uses that money. All 10 different groups which could be involved in intoxicating drinks are cursed by Rasulullah. So therefore, this concept has to be understood that anything to do with alcohol is forbidden, even if it was carrying it from one place and placing it in another place and earning money on behalf of that, that money is forbidden, as mentioned in this tradition. And similarly, there are many other traditions that we receive from our fifth Imam. Another place, Imam says, Imam Baqir alayhi that when an alcoholic enters the day of judgment tomorrow, his face will be dark, his mouth in disgust, his tongue dangling out from the mouth, and he will cry for extreme thirst. He will be given the liquid from the well in which the pus of adulterers will be spilled for drinking. That's how this person will be treated. Someone asked, Amir al-Mu'mineen, did you say that drinking alcohol is worse than stealing and committing adultery? Imam said, yes. Since the adulterer or the one who steals doesn't commit another crime after having committed zina, for example, or sirqa, when has stolen. But the person who's intoxicated can commit further crimes, such as taking the life of another individual or, relieving the prayers, and other sins could be associated with it. So the one who consumes alcohol, even after having the knowledge that God has made it forbidden, it is not worthy to respond positively to him for a marriage proposal. To that extent, his shafa'at is not accepted. His words shouldn't be approved. He shouldn't be considered trustworthy with trust. I'll remain content with this much as far as the first thing amongst which brings tahtikul isam, that which brings disgrace. Imam says, shurbul khamr is number one. Number two was al-la'ibu bil qimar, gambling. There's so much discussion in this, but of course we'll refrain from it, as this might not be something which is, of course, it is relevant in the society that we live in. Some people might not know, but it is also amongst those things which is forbidden. Working in a casino, building or making the tools of gambling, buying or selling, even the lottery, all of these things are considered to be forbidden. Imam Rada والسلام, in his letter to Mamun, considered gambling to be amongst the major sins. Similarly, in Quran, both alcohol and gambling are considered to be ithmun kabir, as the previous ayah which I had initially recited. So producing the tools of gambling, taking its payment, playing it, and even the condition of winning or losing is not allowed. Sitting in the gathering where gambling is taking place, witnessing it is also considered to be haram, and leaving such gatherings is considered to be obligatory. Number three that Imam mentions, he says, ta'ati ma yudhiku nas min al-laghwi wal mizah. That which brings disgrace, to deal with futility, which makes people laugh in vain and jokes. One might say, what's wrong with making people laugh? This is, a different thing which is being mentioned over here. There's one thing where you crack a joke where people, get excited, or they laugh at it, which means those who use foul language and futility to induce humor. That's what is being mentioned over here. There's no benefit for someone who performs and one who watches in this world as well as in the hereafter. It's waste of precious time. And of course, it also disgraces a person. Wasting precious lifetime is amongst what? Gufrani ni'mat. So the gift of life is amongst the most important and beneficial ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. And the best way to thank God is to spend it in the ways which He has commenced or allowed us for it to go ahead and use. So therefore, once a man by the name Tawba ibn Summa, he started doing his accountability. He counted the days that he has spent since he became baligh. because that's when taklif al-shar'i came upon him. He came to the conclusion that he had been mukallaf for 60 years. So, for example, he was maybe 75 years old at that time. He said, I've been mukallaf for 60 years, which is 21,900 days. He cried, woe unto me, if I didn't commit more than one sin a day. I will surely meet God with at least 21,900 sins upon me. That is to assume that I only committed one sin a day. There might be days where I've committed more than one sin, but at least if I committed one sin a day, which I'm so sure about myself, then if I live for 21,900 days thus far that I have been mukallaf, then I will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with close to 22,000 sins. He fell unconscious and he died out of that. Number 4, dhikru uyub bin nas. I'll go through it quickly as I have run out of my time. Mentioning people's defects and shortcomings. Protecting the honor of Muslims and mu'min is obligatory in Islam. The honor of mu'min is considered equal to his blood. Irdul mu'mini kaddamihi. And there are many traditions in this regard, that when someone slanders another person, even if that person has those deficiencies. So I'm slandering someone who possesses those deficiencies. It's not like that I'm making it up. It destabilizes the foundation of trust and itminan. It also affects the system of family life as well as the society. And the affairs of Muslims are upset because of that. And therefore, the sanctity of a mu'min is above the sanctity of Kaaba, according to some riwayat. Perfect beings are only prophets and imams. Awliya al-Khas, these are the only people who are infallible, who do not commit sins. Prophet said, Ya ma'ashara man aslama bilisanihi wa lam yakhlus al-imanu ila qalbihi. لا تضموا المسلمين ولا تتبعوا عوراتهم فإنه من تتبع عوراتهم تتبع الله عورته. He says, oh, those who have submitted through their tongues, but Iman hasn't reached their souls yet. Don't reproach a Muslim and don't go after searching their defects. If anyone searches their defects, God will go after their defects. So if I go around searching for the defects of the people, Riwayah says, Allah will expose my defects. And whomever Allah goes after their defects, even if it is in the privacy of their homes, that person will be disgraced. Remind you of a story of Zulaykha and Hazrat Yusuf ﷺ, that how she tricked him into coming into that private chamber. She closed 7 doors. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. Quran did not say وَأَغْلَقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. أَغْلَق means just to close it. غَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, that means with authority, that means they were closed with force, for example. That means could not be opened easily. And she tried to make it so that nobody finds out. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted everyone to know about it. It was exposed, and the innocence of Hazrat Yusuf was presented when the gawahi and the witness was given from a child, a baby, an infant. And Hazrat Yusuf eventually returns back with the same pride and honor. And the qissa and the story remains in Quran forever for anyone to go ahead and do mutali'ah. So with all the arrangements Zulaykha made, as the words of Quran are mentioned, you read those words, they're not ordinary words, but the carefulness of it, but it's still because God wanted it to be exposed, no one can keep it from being exposing. Imam Ali said, be a friend of someone who restrains you from evil, and your enemy is someone who deceives you and portrays evil as good. So those who bring gift wrap and evil for you, refrain from such individuals. Imam Zainul Abidin says, someone who highlights the defects of others, even if they possess them, people will associate defects towards him he doesn't possess. Right away, people will start pointing finger towards that person. And that is the result, which the previous riwayat also mentioned, that Allah goes after the defects of such individual. The biggest mistake of insan is that he seeks the deficiencies of others while doesn't sense the similar deficiencies in himself or herself. Imam said, may Allah forgive the person who gifts presents by reminding me of my deficiencies. Of course, in private. When a person comes and in private tells you that there's something wrong with me, that is actually a friend of yours. But the one who always praises you on your face, says, no, there's nothing wrong with you, that person is not your friend. Imam Askari said, the one who advises his friend in private has indeed embellished him, but the one who advises his friend in public has indeed disgraced him. لا تعجل في عيب أحد or عيب عبد بذنبه فلعله مغفور له. I'll conclude with this beautiful riwayat, or rather kalam of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha, khutbah number 140. He said, O servant of Allah, do not be quick in exposing anyone's sins, for he may be forgiven for that sin. The sin that you saw that person commit, he may be forgiven for it. And do not feel yourself safe even from a small sin, because you may be punished for it. So don't expose anyone's sin because they may be forgiven. And don't feel safe about your small sins because you might be punished for it. Therefore, every one of you who comes to know the faults of others should not expose them in view of what he knows about his own faults. And he should remain busy in thanks that he has been saved from what others have been indulging in. Last thing, which is mujalasatu ahl al-rayb, which brings disgrace. Remember, the discussion was Allahumma aghfir li ad-dunub allati tahtikul isam. Allah, forgive the sins which bring disgrace upon me, right? Fifth thing which brings disgrace is mujalisatu ahl al-rayb, being in the company of those who are dubious. لا ينبغي للمؤمن أن يجلس مجلسا يعصي الله فيه ولا يقدر على تغييره. It's not appropriate for a moment to remain in the gathering where Allah is being disobeyed and you do not have the ability to change the discussion. Love Allah and draw closer to Him by showing abhorrence and hate toward the sinners, and seek the satisfaction of Allah by showing that displeasing them. Sit with those whose face remind you of Allah, and whose speech increase your knowledge, and whose actions increase your desire for the hereafter. These are the 5 things that Imam ﷺ mentions that bring what? Disgrace to a person, a human being. I'm just going to remind you 5 things: consuming alcohol, gambling, deal with futility which makes people laugh in vain, mentioning people's defects, and being in the company of those who are dubious. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and ability to refrain from all 5 of these, so that we are not amongst those who are disgraced in this life or in the hereafter. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. One more time, let's recite this dua shifa 5 times for Brother Nasir Rizvi, and as well as Brother Syed Hassan Raza. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibul muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Inshallah, join us for Thursday night program at 7:30. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Mutawajjih ziyarat. Assalamu alaikum Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum Nabi Allah, Assalamu alaikum Habib Allah, Assalamu alaikum Khiyaratallah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Assalamu alaikum Abu Abdullah, Assalamu alaikum Ibn Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abika wa ala ummika wa akhik वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। अस्सलाम वालेकुम या क़रीबल ग़ुरबा, अस्सलाम वालेकुम या मुईन अद-दुआफ़ा वल फ़ुक़रा, अस्सलाम वालेकुम या शम्स अश-शुमूस व अनीस अन-नुफ़ूस अय्युल मदफ़ून बि'अदतु सलीम नमूस वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। अस्सलाम वालेकुम साहिबल अस्र वज़्ज़मान, अस्सलाम वालेकुम इमाम अल-इंस वल जन्न, अस्सलाम वालेकुम शरीक अल-क़ुरआन, अज्जलल्लाहु तआला फ़रजक व सहहलल्लाहु मख़रजक व ज़ुहूरक व जअलना मिन अवानिक व अंस्वारिक व रहमतुल्लाह।